Hey there, I'm Stefanie Flaxman. I've been a writer and editor for 20 years, and I have more than 200 videos on YouTube that help you live and work like a writer. That is a lot of videos, so let me curate my best advice for you. You can sign up for free exclusive updates at stefanieflaxman.com. I'll send you my top tips for new writers, plus other advice that works best in email rather than audio or video. It would be my pleasure to meet you at your inbox as your new writer consultant. Ready to join the club? Go to stefanieflaxman.com to sign up for free. And remember, I spell Stefanie with an F, not a PH. The proper spelling is on your screen right now. That is stefanieflaxman.com. I'll see you there. Happy Monday if you are listening in real time, and if you are not listening in real time but would like to, just subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Then you will get a little note letting you know every time a podcast episode is published, which is every weekday. And we happen to be talking on a Monday today, starting off the week with one of the most fun topics of being human, which is fear. We have it as humans, we have it as writers, and also doubting ourselves as human beings and doubting ourselves as writers. There are so many connections between being a human and being a writer. You could almost say that writing is a part of being human, which is also a tricky thing because, as I've talked about before, there is often a confusion of what makes someone a professional writer and what makes someone just a writer as a hobby. If everyone can write, in theory, if you have been taught to read and write, what makes someone a professional and what makes someone an amateur? And that is not the topic of today's video. I have other videos on that. I'm sure I will talk about that topic again in the future. But what I'm really getting into today is not those external factors where you look like a professional writer or you only look like you're writing as a hobby, but the internal factors, what you are dealing with on an internal level when you are establishing yourself as a writer, the fear, the doubt, the things that hold you back from doing activities that seem fun to you, namely publishing your writing and sharing them with the world so that other people see your creative ideas. They can give you feedback on your thoughts. You can build a community around the topic that you want to write about. And all of that is very exciting and fun, and it can also be very exciting and scary. As many videos as I've published on YouTube, as much as I've written, when you are doing something new, when you are starting a new project from scratch, because you are human, all of that fear and doubt still comes into play. There's no level of experience that allows you to escape from the fear and doubt of really just making mistakes, of not doing something right, of being disappointed in yourself. And yeah, I don't have a lot of encouraging thoughts that magically absolve you from having those feelings. But I think that in and of itself can be encouraging. Accepting that the fear and the doubt never goes away is really a first step, because once you accept that, then you can learn to work with it. And I guess what I'm really talking about today is how we work with fear and doubt after you acknowledge that it's not going to go away. Because great if you think it does at some point. If you think someone reaches some ultimate level of success and they never have fear and doubt again, that's great. Maybe that does happen for some people. From my experience, it's with you in the beginning and it stays with you. I think the difference now for me is that I just know how to move on. And what upsets me when I see fear and doubt creep in for newer writers is that often it keeps them stuck and they don't end up doing what they want to do. they don't end up sharing their ideas because they don't know how to move on from that fear and that doubt. So even though I have fear, I have doubt with all the creative projects that I'm doing, anything new that I do, I move on anyways. I think because I know that ultimately it really doesn't matter, and I'd rather do the thing that I want to do rather than have fear and doubt hold me back. And so you can see why it is upsetting for me when I see fear and doubt hold new writers back when they limit themselves because they're so scared of making mistakes. I really like helping people move past that, because when you learn to move on and just do what you want to do, it's very freeing, and it just feels really productive, and it feels like you're working on things that matter to you. So I think the first thing that we all need to do is laugh at ourselves a little bit more. I giggle a lot. I'm a big laugher. I like laughing, but I can get really, really serious. I'm really, really serious about projects that matter to me. And so how do I balance this wanting to be more lighthearted and wanting to laugh at myself, but I get like just so serious about everything that I'm working on, and I get very obsessed, and I just want everything to be right, which is kind of counterproductive, because the more that you obsess and control over things, the more little mistakes are going to pop up, and then you get mad at yourself, and it's just sort of a frustrating cycle. So my rule of thumb, I think this whole episode is just rules of thumbs, lots of thumbs everywhere. You could give this video a thumbs up if you end up liking it. If there's anything in here that helped you, that is an option that would help me. Let me help you, help me. So the first rule of thumb is really to take your work seriously, but not take yourself seriously. That's what I try to come back to when I find I'm being very uptight, when I'm being very rigid, when I'm being very controlling about a situation. I realize I'm taking my work seriously because I care about good quality work, but I don't need to take myself seriously. And I'm the one doing the work. So this allows me just to be forgiving of myself. And it's easier to forgive yourself when you take a step back and you think of yourself as someone else, because we often find it easier to forgive other people when other people make mistakes. We go, oh, don't worry about it. It's like you're talking to your friend, you want to be encouraging, but when it's you who you think has made a mistake, it feels like the end of the world. How could I have done that? That's awful. How am I going to recover from this? And, mistakes can be laughable a lot of the time because you usually can recover from them. And you should open yourself up to the possibilities of all the options you have for recovering from your mistake rather than being fixated on the mistake itself. So let's take our work seriously. Let's take ourselves less seriously so that we go easier on ourselves and we are more forgiving with ourselves. Because if someone who is looking at your work is judging you harder than you judge yourself, if someone is looking at your work, your writing work that you publish, something that you do on your website, something that you do on social media, if someone is looking at that and judging you harder than you judge yourself, and they won't forgive you for something that you've done, they can go away. You can say goodbye to them. Anyone looking at your creative output and judging it harder than you judge yourself, they can leave. They can stop looking at it. You don't need to worry about them in the long run. If someone offers constructive criticism, great. You've just gotten constructive criticism that you can incorporate and learn from and grow from. That should be it. That should be the only thing that you're worrying about, what you can learn from feedback that you get. But if anybody is criticizing you to the point that it's upsetting you, you have to tell them goodbye. You block them if it's online. You let it go. And you move on because they are not worth it. And ultimately, I think what I'm getting at here is that you're not going to find a lot of those people. Your worst critic most of the time is going to be yourself. So if you can move on from any mistake that you make quicker, that's going to serve you well in the long run. And it takes practice, because I'm also talking about doubt. And doubt is floating around fear, this whole discussion about fear, because you're really doubting whether or not you're capable of doing what you want to do a lot of the time. And if there are outside critics, a lot of that leads to doubting your own abilities. So just take what you can learn from anything that someone has to say about what you're doing, and just know why you are doing what you're doing, which there's going to be an upcoming episode about your why, because I think when you keep that in mind, just like I talked about in my imposter syndrome episode, when you know why you're doing what you're doing and who you're aiming to help, a lot of that fear and that doubt can be crushed a lot easier, because you have a purpose and you have an aim with the work that you're doing. Also, in the beginning, if you're just starting out, probably the biggest thing that's going to happen is that no one's paying attention to you. And that's great, because you can learn in public because you're publishing your writing in public. But you don't have to be preoccupied with a bunch of criticisms, because you're going to have fewer people paying attention to you. And even when more people are paying attention to you, like I just said, they're more forgiving than you are most of the time. So you really just have to worry about being easier on yourself and realizing that everyone who's doing everything that you are doing or that you want to do they're making the same mistakes. They have the same fear. They have the same doubt. You are not the only one going through all of these emotions in your journey of being a writer. Our fear and doubt emotions, maybe they're states of being, their thoughts. I don't know. I don't want to say they're not real. Some people might say they're real. I think they're real, but I also think that they can be managed and you can swiftly move on from them. Also, in the beginning, probably not just the beginning, anytime that you are doing creative work when you're writing, you're not a good judge of what you did. You're not usually a good judge of the quality of what you just produced. There are some objective standards of quality, and hopefully you're aiming to meet them because you care about it. You have attention to detail. You care about getting facts right. You care about your grammar, spelling, all of the components of good writing. You probably enjoy. That's why you want to be a writer. But in terms of, people are going to like this or people aren't going to like this, how your work will be received, you're often not a good judge of that. I have judged myself very harshly about articles I've written, about videos, or, even audio that I've done in the past. And I'll say, that was horrible. And then people really like it and I get really good feedback. And then the opposite of that, sometimes I'll think that something's really good. I'll have a favorite video. I'll have a favorite article. I'll have a favorite podcast episode or some audio I've recorded, something that I've taught. And I've thought it was really good. And then nobody really cares. I don't get any feedback on it that it was especially helpful or not helpful. So the same thing will happen to you. Whatever you publish, whatever you write and publish, there has to be a celebration and an accomplishment just in the fact that you completed what you wanted to do, because how it's received is so out of your control. People might like it when you hated it. People might not like it when you loved it. That's just how it goes. So that also helps us laugh at ourselves a little bit more and not take ourselves too seriously. We can take the work seriously. We can do a good job, make sure we're thorough, make sure we're complete, make sure we're releasing everything that we want to put in our published piece of writing, but then not take ourselves too seriously. Maybe we liked it, maybe we didn't like it, maybe people will like it, maybe people won't like it. It's okay. There's always more work to do. There's always more to write. So just, again, move on. I think the biggest theme that is emerging from the topic of fear or doubt is that you have to find your own personal way to move on, whether it's laughing at yourself, whether it's realizing that people who want to be really harsh on you don't really matter, or if you just find humor in the fact that sometimes you're going to really like something and people won't, or the opposite. You know, it's a lot of the stuff is out of your control. All you can do is put your best work into what you're doing. And then the last thing that I think is important to touch on for new writers who have a lot of fear with their work, often in a new job situation, you could do work and then get some strict criticism from your editor or from someone else that you're working with who really highlights something that you could have done better. And that's hard because, right, you tried your best. You've tried to take yourself a little less seriously. You've tried to let it go. And then an editor comes back and says, no, you actually did this wrong. And here's how you should have done it. The best thing in that situation is to not take it personally and have an open mind, because my favorite lessons were things that I did wrong that someone had to point out to me. So if you let that discourage you and make you nervous for your next assignment, you're going to be less open to incorporating whatever feedback you got from the editor. You might even make the same mistake again, which you don't want to do. If you get feedback from an editor about your writing, it's not that you're a bad writer. It's just that someone with more experience has a lesson for you because they want to help you be more professional going forward. So those are the lessons from my experience that will really stick with you over the years. And then later on, they're going to be the lessons that you can pass on to other people when you're in a position to be their mentor. So what are we going to do with fear and doubt? Should we give it a hug? Should we end the episode with giving fear and doubt a hug? I think that is my plan for today. I'm going to give it a hug, and then I'm going to say, thank you. Let's move on. Let me know how you handle fear and doubt, because everybody approaches this topic differently. Let me know if it's held you back, how you go about going easier on yourself, because at the end of the day, we have to be easier on ourselves. We're never going to move on if we hold ourselves to these unattainable standards where we let fear and doubt win. That is it for today. If you'd like to get exclusive tips that I only share in email, go on over to stefanieflaxman.com and sign up for free. I will see you there and talk with you soon.